Hello and welcome to another video. Today we have the face game because we are going to be making a tier list of the best nations in CK3 for the 867 start date. So I'm going to be ranking them in the S to F tier of how good this nation is, like how enjoyable it is. It's not really the difficulty, but it's the enjoyment. I also will have in the description below for you to also do this because this is my opinion. So if you disagree with me, that's okay. But we're going to be going through all the starting countries for 867 and figuring out what I rank them at. And if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and leave a comment what you would like to see a different tier list on. The first nation we're going to talk about is Earl Alfred of Wessex. This is a little next to Cornwall, Wessex is, down in the southern part. Where would I put him at? Would I put him in S tier, D tier? Now, I'd probably put him in a solid D tier for fun. I just think it's really not that fun to play in England. I think when you form a kingdom, you usually have to do like this elector system, and I just think it's quite annoying to have like elector system. So it's not really fun. I don't care if it's historic or not. It's just not fun. And then you also have to deal with all these Scandinavians having special troops. It's actually pretty difficult, and which makes it somewhat more fun. If anything, if it wasn't for it being difficult, I'd probably put an F tier. But just, you start out really weak, you have to combine, and I think just the British Isles are pretty lackluster in CK3. I just think they're not too fun to play at, so it's a little hard because you can't really expand past the British Isles. The good old nation is the Duke of the Isles, which is also in the British Isles. So you think, oh, you just said the British Isles kind of suck to play at. I would have to put this guy in the good old B territory. And the reason why I'm putting him in the B territory is because you kind of have that fun, and you kind of role playing as a Scandinavian invading this the British Isles, and you can just conquer all the British Isles. And so you start pretty like strong and weak, but your territory spread out. But I think this nation is quite fun because you can really spread, but you're like invading as Norse and stuff. So I think it's fun because you get to do enough holy wars, and you just kind of conquer all of the British Isles, and then you can also go back to Scandinavia and conquer Scandinavia too. The Duke of York, also the British Isles, but I feel like it's just not as difficult. So I'm gonna put this probably in the good old C tier. I don't think there's just not, it's kind of just the in-between, but playing as like the Scandinavian and Wessex. I do think the difficulty is not fun, and I just think the British Isles are just not that great. They're not horrible to play as, but like I don't really want to play them often on my free time. Then we go to the Norse countries that are actually in what's it called, Scandinavia. And so if we look at this guy, I cannot pronounce his name whatsoever. If you even wanted me to, I couldn't even try. I think he's kind of in like a tricky spot because you kind of have the Germanic nations below, the really large ones, and in the north you have a whole bunch of Scandinavian countries that are all sporadic. But I would have to say that the nation is not that horrible to play on, so I'd probably put it as the good little B tier. Now that I think if I put that at B tier, and I just think Denmark's a cool nation, and that's what you can kind of form. I'm actually gonna move the guy Duke of Isles to A tier, just because I do think it's fun to be like this barbarian, quote unquote, invading the British Isles and conquering everything. And then Upland, I don't even have to look at Upland. I feel like is a pretty fun nation to play in Scandinavia, so I'm gonna put that also in A. I just think it's very fun. You kind of just conquer everything, and you just kind of expand. I think you can expand a lot further than just Scandinavia, and you can kind of like get all the power from Scandinavia and expand from there. So I think that nation is quite enjoyable to play as. Then we're going to go to the Great Adventures, and this is going to be a little bit more interesting. These are a bunch more diverse nations here. I gotta say, where are we going to start off? Who do we have first? Okay, so we got this guy over in France, and let's start up the game to see exactly what we're looking at. I think we were actually a count of West Francia, so we are in this nation, or are we independent? Oh, we're independent? No way. We're actually independent from West Francia, but we do have special soldiers. So this is definitely, I thought we were actually part of it, but this is a Norse nation, separate of West Francia. See, this is a nation I haven't played, but I would have to say that I would probably put this in D tier, because with those special troops, you actually have a chance against West Francia and Brittany, and since you kind of are the human player, you probably could do good. So it's kind of cool if you start as like this small nation to possibly expand and take over all of France. So it's definitely... It says it's easy, but I feel like it's going to be a bit more of a challenge than it thinks, because you have to take on West Francia, because you really can't expand past Brittany and West Francia. There's nowhere else to go. So it seems like it's fun. You would be able to conquer a big nation as starting as little, but the AI never does it, so it would really need players to play. I don't know why that's considered easy. I might have to try to see why that is so easy. The next is this count in the good old France, Count Udis. He is going to be extremely hard because he's so young. I have to say, just right off the bat, being a kid, 10-year-olds, you never want your leader to be younger than 16. It's just kind of like a really crappy start. But I also really like the idea of starting in a major nation as a count and trying to rise the ranks. So those are two really big players, so I think I would probably put that into B, just because it's fun to be a count and then try to become like the king or emperor of the nation. So I think an initial start of a count of a big nation is actually very cool, and something that I think they should have more starting nations, recommended starting nations be. I do think, however, being a 10-year-old really makes the game a lot more challenging in the beginning, because you can't really control too much and people will hate you because you're not like reigning or whatever. So I would have to give that a B tier. It has some advantages for being a count in a kingdom, but it still is going to be rather difficult. The next nation is this nation in Africa, and I have to say I'm a big fan of playing in India and Africa. I think those are some of the most fun places to play. I actually am going to put this in S tier. And this is going to be very controversial, but I think some of the most fun places to play are in Africa and India. And that's just because there are so many places to go, and you don't have to worry about this big nation killing you. Because like when you're in the British, usually it's like England or some north places you have to worry about. Or if you're in West Francia, you have to worry about East Francia and Spain. But like in Africa, you only have to worry about other African nations, and there's some powerful ones still. So like it's not like you just can like wall over everyone, but it becomes a lot more challenging because you have to win a lot more wars and you have to progress. Where when you're in like West Francia, you win like one war and you're really kind of like it's over. Like if you play West Francia and you take out East Francia, the game's over. You pretty much win the game. Like it's over. You might as well stop playing. With Africa, there's a lot you have to expend before you quote unquote win the game, because obviously winning the game is you conquer the world, in my opinion. But there's kind of when you get power enough to like you have no real challenges, that's when, in my opinion, you win the game. And in Africa and India, you have to go quite a bit to get there to actually win the game. The next nation is Duke of Novgorod. I've played this nation. I'm gonna be honest, it's pretty bad. I thought it'd be really fun, but it really wasn't. I'll play on C tier. It's not like horrible either, but there's definitely better nations out there to play. You kind of just go around trying to form Russia, but the land's really weak. The Byzantines usually come up and destroy you. So I'm thinking C or D, and I think I'm actually going to put in D because the land is just horrible. Your development's horrible. You're really not that powerful. Anyone can really stop you if they become more powerful. The land's just pretty bad in CK3. It's very underdeveloped. You don't have that much money. It's pretty crap. The next empire or kingdom we're going to talk about is this guy right here, and I have to say I just like this guy just based because he's like a non-European culture, so that already makes me want to put him like way up here. But I think you can easily spread into Asia and Africa with this nation, and there's a couple of powerful nations but not too powerful. Bulgaria is someone that you eventually can go with in like Hungary, so I'm going to probably put this in like B tier. I think the nation is pretty fun to play as. I think the different cultures and religions make it really unique to expand from, instead of just playing like the good old Europeans. It's a little bit outside of Europe. Okay, then we're gonna go to the last, and in my opinion, one of the worst places to play. I think all these nations, if I'm being honest, are pretty bad to play as. I just think they're not very fun. You just get this kingdom. I kind of like to start from the bottom and creating a large kingdom, and these you're pretty much just given the large kingdom. You win like one major war and it's practically over. So let me go ahead and destroy them in the tier list. So the first one that we are going to do is Duke of Bavaria, and I have to say he's probably one of the better ones because you can really expand into I'll actually show you. With the Duke of Bavaria, you can like eat up your own empire in East Francia, but there's also plenty of neighbors to go after as well. It's not like you just have to stay in your faction, and then you can definitely get independence once you take a whole bunch of places over. I do not like this big of a vassal inside of this kingdom per se. So Duke of Bavaria is quite interesting. There's a lot of neighbors you can attack, a lot of wars you can do. You can fight for independence, which is a fun thing. You could also just take over the kingdom that is over you. But in my opinion, fighting for independence would be how I would play it. So I would put this definitely in C tier, just because I think it's a rather large nation and like you don't have too many threats around you. Really, once you get your independence, you probably steamroll a lot of people. I just think it's not very fun. I think there's a balance between too difficult and difficult, and I think this one just would be a little bit map painter. I just want to be quite enjoyable. And then we have the good old German king of East Francia. I think he's actually quite good because he can expand to the east quite a bit. So I'm gonna put him, I don't know if I should put him in A tier. Put him in B tier because like you can like conquer Poland, and everyone knows conquering Poland is quite a big achievement. Not really, it's just fun to do. It's very memorable to conquer Poland. So I'm gonna put them in B tier, but again, they're also in the good old kingdom empire. Actually no, he's a king of East Francia, so he is a king, but it just, I'm actually going to put him in C tier. It's just, playing as a kingdom off his bat is just not my favorite thing to do. I think it's just too easy sometimes. And he's a pretty powerful king, so I think in reality, you just kind of like storm over people and murder them. Oh, the king of some name I can't pronounce, I think he's going into be our F tier. He is just, it's kind of like too easy and kind of too hard. You are literally sandwiched in between two other huge kingdoms. Actually, I think it's more like three huge kingdoms. Italy is to your south, West Francia is to your west, East Francia is to your right. And in reality, if you win one of those wars, you just conquer all of them and you win. Like, it's not very fun. You just slowly chip away from these big kingdoms. I just don't really quite as fun. You started this powerful kingdom, and the only ways to expand are these three other kingdoms that are really powerful or will fall apart. And you usually get eaten up from one East Francia or West Francia because there's some sort of like related claim, so there's plenty of claimants too. So it's just not a fun nation. You probably will disappear. It says it's medium difficulty. It's just not a fun nation to play as. That was the king of Italy. Sorry, this is who I was talking about. You go there. And now we're talking about the king of Italy. King of Italy goes to A tier, and that's just because I love Italy. I just think it's fun. It's the only country I've been to besides the United States, so I'm 100% biased. F anyone that says I'm biased, because no, never mind. Don't F you. You're right. I am biased. Italy is amazing. I just think it's a nation that falls apart in CK3 a lot. I've done a lot of AI games, and they fall apart quite often in CK3 or getting eaten up by the HRE. So it's quite interesting to see what you can do with Italy. It's quite fun, really enjoyable. I think it's a nation you should definitely try to play as. West Francia, I kind of want to put it in D tier. The only thing you really do is eat up the Lotharians or whatever in East Francia, or go after Iberia. In reality, it's not that fun to play as. I think it's the good old kingdoms are too powerful, not fun to play. With the kingdoms as well, a lot of it is more of management, less wars, of figuring out what's going on. I think the role-playing in CK3 is a lot less than Crusader Kings 2. I think there's a lot more combat and conquering involved than other things. I think intrigue is pretty bad. So really, you just go around conquering the large other kingdoms, which are not really fun wars, because I guess if difficulty is your thing, they're fun. but it's just kind of like you have to slowly chip away out of this big nation over and over again, so it's not really fun. You can eventually probably get a claim for the entire kingdom because all of these people are related, and that's just because of how it worked back then. But I don't know, the last couple nations are pretty bad. The only one that I really put up there was Italy, and that's because it's Italy. That's literally the only reason. I'll be honest. But this is my tier list. You can 100% disagree with me. I will probably do the tier list for the other starting nations, but I have to say Africa and India are definitely one of the most fun places to start, and I'm glad that they have a recommended African nation to play as. So if you guys want to what your opinion is, put it in the link down below. No, there's a link down below. If you guys want to do a tier list of these starting nations, there's a link down below for you to create your own. And if you want to, please use the hashtag on the screen to show it to me. Do hashtag starting nation CK3, and I will see it on Twitter. So if you want to do that, I would love to see what you guys would do, or if you just want to link it to me in the comments down below. But thank you guys for watching this tier list. If you like this tier list, make sure to leave a like and recommend a different tier list. I'll see you guys in a different video. This is my tier list. If you disagree with me, then screw you. See you later. Goodbye. Have a good one.